Welcome people. In this video we are going to look at science paper 2 for the year 2023, and we are going to look at section A, where we have 4 multiple choices of which we are required to make one choice of the one that we think is correct. So let's look at the first one. Which of the following is not a branch of chemistry? Now let's have a look at the first one, biochemistry. Biochemistry is just the study of the chemical nature in terms of life. So here we have to focus on what chemistry tells us about life. The second one, we have organic chemistry, that deals with substances that contains carbon. So this one is a branch of chemistry. Then we have a physical chemistry. This one tells us the link between physics and chemistry. So the answer here is D, because thermodynamics has to do with the physics, which is not chemistry. Now we move on to question 2. Which of the following statements distinguishes between an atom and an ion? An atom is neutral. The reason why we say it's neutral, because the number of protons equals the number of electrons. Then for an ion, this one is charged. It is charged. It can be positive or negative, but the point is it is charged. So the key point was the first one. They are looking at an atom. So whatever that should comes after the word an atom has to do with the neutral. So let's look at the first question, multiple choice. A has different number of protons and electrons, while an ion has equal. No. B has no protons, while an ion has protons. No. C is electrically charged. No, an atom is not like that. So the answer is D. An atom is electrically neutral, while an ion has an overall electrical charge. We move on to question 3. Which of the following pieces of apparatus can be used to measure accurately a fixed volume of a gas? A, burette, measuring cylinder, pipette, separating funnel. If you look at the burette, measuring cylinder, pipette, all these can be used to measure and accurate. Now the one that is more accurate among these three is burette. So our choice will go for burette. If burette was not part of our answer, would have gone for pipette. Then if pipette and burette were not there, would have gone for measuring cylinder. Okay. We move on to question 4. Identify a separation technique which can be used to separate a mixture of water and butanol. Butanol is an alcohol. So the whole thing is about separating water from alcohol, or the reverse. So this one has to do with fractional distillation because of different boiling point. Here we are going to have different boiling points. Question 5. A compound is a chemical combination of 2 or more elements. So this is our answer. B is not. C, mixture of 2 or more elements. No, it's not a mixture, it's a chemical combination. We need to have a word chemical. Question 6. Which pair of elements from a compound form a compound by sharing electrons? So for us to have sharing electrons, we need to have nonmetals. So we are going to choose a compound that we think consists of nonmetals only. So the first one, argon and oxygen. Argon, the reason why this one cannot be the answer is that argon is from group 8, and we know that the group 8 cannot form a compound. They are stable. Then for B, nitrogen and oxygen. So this is our answer, because nitrogen is a nonmetal, so is oxygen. Then C, potassium is a metal, so this is an ionic compound. This involves transfer of electrons. Sodium and chlorine, an ionic compound. Okay, we move on to question 7. An element X forms an ion the mass number is 60, the atomic number is 27, then we have positive 3. So what is the number of electrons, neutrons, and protons in this ion? Now, whenever we have a positive on top here, this kind of an ion is a cation. Cation forms by losing electrons. So this is a metal that we are dealing with. So here, for us to find the number of electrons, the total before this element forms an ion, it had 27 electrons. So this means that 3 electrons were given out. So if we subtract 3 from 27, we get 24. So in this particular ion, we need to have 24 electrons. Why 3 electrons were given out? If we have 24 electrons, how many number of protons are there? The protons must be still 27. Why? Because after gaining or losing, the number of protons does not change, remains the same. Only the number of electrons becomes affected. Now for us to find neutrons, neutrons is given by mass number subtracted by the atomic number. The mass number is this one on top, 60 minus atomic number is 27. If you subtract 27 from 60, you get 33. So which multiple choice corresponds to the information? Electrons 24, neutrons 33, protons 27. So the answer is C. Number 8, which of the following is not a characteristic of an acid? An acid has a sour taste. This is a characteristic. B produces hydroxide ion when dissolves in water. So the answer is B, because what behaves in such a manner is a base. C, react with a metal carbonate to produce salt, water, and carbon dioxide. This is a characteristic. Turns a blue litmus paper red. This is a characteristic. For question 9, which statement explains why salts do not conduct electricity in a solid state of matter? Let's give an example of a salt. We have sodium chloride. From this salt, we know that sodium is a metal, and whenever a metal reacts with a non-metal, it loses electrons, and after that it forms a cation, which is a positive ion. Then for the non-metal, for the chlorine, it's the reverse of this. It's a non-metal. Then for this one, it is going to gain, then it is going to form an ion. From these two terms, we have the word ion, or the suffix ion. So what is an ion? An ion is just an atom, or we can say a group of atoms with a charge. Okay, if so that is the case, salt doesn't contain atoms, it contains ions. Now for electricity to be transferred in a substance like this one, the ions, our focus is ions, not the atoms, since this is an ionic compound. So for electricity to be transferred from one point to another point, these ions must move. So we need to look at the multiple choice that talks about why electricity cannot pass through a solid state. So it's because of but because of ions are not free to move. Then for A, the delocalized electrons in salts are not free and not mobile. Delocalized electrons found in a metal. So this is not the answer. We are looking at the compound. B, the ions in salt are not free and not mobile in solid state. So the answer is B, since we have ions here. They have free and mobile. No, if they are free, it can conduct electricity. They have free and mobile, delocalized. No. So we have the answer as required. We move on to question 10. When strongly heated, calcium carbonate decomposes according to the chemical equation shown. Okay, so given that 500 grams of calcium carbonate were thermally decomposed, calculate the volume of carbon dioxide gas which was produced at RTP. So what are we going to do? we know that we need to find the volume of carbon dioxide. So the formula is number of moles is equal to volume of a gas divided by molar volume. So if we are to make volume the subject of formula, we are going to need number of moles times the molar volume. So the molar volume we are going to get from the condition of RTP, which is 24. So what we need is we need the number of moles for us to proceed. Now, how can we find the number of moles if we are only given the mass of calcium carbonate? So what we are going to do is we are going to find the number of moles for calcium carbonate. Then from there, we are going to use the mole ratio to find the number of moles for carbon dioxide. So let's find the number of moles for calcium carbonate. Number of moles is equal to, here, mass over molar mass. So the mass is given 500 grams. We need to find the molar mass for calcium carbonate. So from the mixture, calcium times 1 plus carbon times 1 plus oxygen times 3. So the mass number for calcium is 40 times 1, for carbon is 12 times 1 plus 16 times 3. 40 times 1 is 40 plus 12 plus 48. If we add 40 plus 12 is 52 plus 48 will give us 100. So here the molar mass is 100 grams per mole. So if we divide with 100 grams, we get 5 moles of calcium carbonate. Now, if we have the number of moles for calcium carbonate as 5 moles, how can we find the number of moles for carbon dioxide? So let's look at the mole ratio. So the mole ratio is the number in front of calcium carbonate, which is 1. Since we are not given a number, it's 1. Then for carbon dioxide is also 1. Now, whenever maybe atoms or compounds share the same mole ratio, their number of moles must also be equal to each other. So if calcium carbonate has 1 as a mole ratio and carbon dioxide has also 1, then the number of moles of calcium carbonate must be equal to the number of moles of carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide will also have 5 moles. So that's the concept that was needed here. Then we say the number of moles is 5 times 24. Where is 24 coming from? 24 is coming from the RTP condition. 5 times 24, I'm getting 120. So 120 cubic decimeters. So the answer is just A. Okay, for question 11, you can just use maybe the actual past paper. It's not here, but let me see what I can do. Why should water never be added to an acid when diluting a concentrated acid? So this has to do with the acid being exothermic when dissolved in water. So it can be explosive. So the answer has to do with the exothermic. So it's B, the process of diluting acid is exothermic, and concentrated acid have a high affinity for water. So that is our answer there. Remember that. Okay, then we have question 12. The following graphs summarize the reaction between powdered calcium carbonate and dilute hydrochloric acid of different concentration and show the volume of gas produced. Which graph shows the slowest chemical reaction? Okay, so let's say for us maybe to have a clear picture, maybe you need to put some numbers here. Okay, so at this point, let's say at this point we have, let's say 1. At this point we have 2. At this point we have 3. Here we have 4. So for reaction 1, to reach its maximum production of the gas, here the time taken is 1. For reaction 2, the time taken is 2. For reaction 3, the time taken is 3. For reaction 4, the time taken is 4. Okay, so meaning this one is the slowest because it is taking longer time to reach the same volume as reaction 1. Then the fastest is this one. So here the answer is just D. 13. Element X has valences equal to, has valence electrons equal to 6. In which group of the periodic table does element X belong? So what are valence electrons? So the valence electrons are electrons found in the outermost shell of an atom of an element. So if there are 6 electrons in the outermost shell, then the group is 6, because we know that the number of electrons in the outermost shell determines the group in which an element is found, while the number of shells determines the period. We move on to question 14. How are elements on the periodic table arranged? They are arranged according to their so it's about T, proton number. Boiling point, no. Mass number, no. The mass number can differ. That's why we have isotopes. The mass number, you may find that the mass number of an atom is different from that one, which is on the periodic table. Like if you look at carbon, there is carbon 12, there is carbon 13 up to carbon 14, but the atomic number is the same. So we can't use the mass numbers since the mass number may differ. 15. Which of the following explains why nonmetals are poor conductors of heat and electricity? So A, the electrons in them are localized and not mobile. B, the ions are free. The molecules in there, okay, so it's about nonmetals. So the answer is the electrons in them are localized. So localized electrons are those electrons that are not free to move. Remember that. And whenever we have such a condition, heat and electricity cannot be transferred. 16. Which of the following is not a property of a typical metal? It's A, brittleness. Not all metals are brittle. Conductivity of electricity, it's a typical. Ductility is typical. Sonoricity is also typical. We have 17. Hydrogen can be manufactured from methane according to the following reaction scheme. Okay, what are the identities of substances M, N, and P? M, which substance can react with methane? So it's steam. This is what we call a steam reformation. Then the catalyst is the nickel. Here we are going to have carbon monoxide, which is, we can just say, oxides of carbon. So the answer here is C, steam, nickel oxide of carbon. 18. Which of the following is true about chlorine, bromine, and iodine? They are colored. These are colored since they absorb certain rays. 19. Which of the following are the product formed in a chemical reaction between an alcohol and a carboxylic acid? So here we are looking at the process of esterification. So esterification is given by, we need the reactant like alcohol plus carboxylic acid. This will give us ester plus water. So whenever we have esterification, we are expecting to have two products, ester and water only. So answer is A. The last question, 20. The following structure shows a common polymer which has 3 monomer units. This is, you can say this is a starch. In some books you may find it to be called a carbohydrate. Regardless, the question is, name the monomer for this polymer. So what is the monomer for a starch? It's just glucose. So we are done. So let's hope you find this video helpful. If that is the case, you may give it a thumbs up. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.